All right, for this first story, you can already see the title. High-speed rail, Houston to Dallas. Funding has been pulled by the federal government. Let's take a look.
Administration also delivered a significant blow to the proposed project for a bullet train from Houston to Dallas. So the federal government terminated that $64 million planning grant for Amtrak 7 months after it was awarded. U.S. Department of Transportation says the cost estimates for this project jumped dramatically, and that is why they had to make that change. It also says that the Texas Central Railway proposal became dependent on money from Amtrak and from the federal government. Transportation leaders, though, say they expected this project to cost more than $40 billion, and they say that makes construction unrealistic and a bigger risk for the taxpayer.
All right, so that was pretty quick, but basically what the federal government is saying is that this is going to cost $40 billion, which is too much for the taxpayer. So the federal government shouldn't be paying for it. But let's get some further insight in the details of this project. So we got a second video on this. Let's take a look.
$60 million earmarked for a high-speed train between Dallas and Houston, now yanked by the U.S. Department of Transportation. The money helped Amtrak study the route and design the plan. The goal was to shuttle riders between the two cities in just 90 minutes. U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy made the announcement, saying it saved taxpayer money, writing in part, quote, "The Texas Central Railway project was proposed as a private venture. If the private sector believes this project is feasible, they should carry the pre-construction work forward rather than relying on Amtrak and the American taxpayer to bail them out."
All right, so you heard the statement from the federal government justifying why they pulled the funding. Their angle is that this project, as it originally was proposed, was a private sector project, but now it's gotten to the point where the federal government is investing in it and is spending a lot of money on it. So what do you guys think? Do you think that the federal government should be spending money on this, or is the Trump administration correct to pull the funding and force them to do it with private money? And just for some perspective, I want to show you guys where this project is, like, so you know exactly what we're talking about here before we go further with the video. So this is the website called texascentral.com, and you see they got a nice beautiful little page right here, and it says nearly 100,000 Texans, sometimes called supercommuters, travel back and forth between Houston and Dallas more than once per week. So they're building this 240-mile high-speed rail line that can get you on this trip in 90 minutes or less. And it's going to have a frequency of every 30 minutes during peak periods each day, and every hour during the off-peak hours. So that sounds pretty good, right? And then they have all the facts down here. You can check it out if you want to come read it on the website. And this is going to be completely grade separated. So unlike Brightline in Florida, where you got some grade crossings where the train has to slow down, this one will be completely on its own alignment. No slowdowns anywhere. It's showing the stations: North Texas, Brazos Valley, Houston. So 3 main stations. Let's take a look at the maps, because we like maps over here. So here's a general idea where the map is. Let's see. Okay, so it's gonna go all the way from downtown Houston to downtown Dallas, and it's generally gonna follow the 45 corridor, though it's not gonna run adjacent to it. It's gonna be on a similar path. So very direct route. Actually very nice. Very nice. So here's a more detailed map if you guys want to zoom in and come check it out. Here's Dallas County at the top. And you can see exactly where it's going to go. Very cool. Very cool. And then down here in Harris County, which is Houston. Okay, so it doesn't quite make it to downtown Houston, but it does get inside the 610 loop. Okay. So that's what the project is. And you guys can check out this website if you want to see any more information about it. Let's get back to the video.
just 1 year ago, then Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, remember that, Phil, appeared on Lone Star Politics and told us the Biden administration supported the project. He said it, quote, has enormous potential.
I think there is enormous potential in this vision, and I'll tell you why. Just the way that the population is laid out in this part of Texas, where you have two major population centers that are a long drive or a very short flight away from each other, that's an excellent candidate for high-speed rail. We see that all over the world, but the U.S., frankly, has been behind other countries when it comes to high-speed rail.
And now in the latest twist, a Fort Worth businessman and the new lead investor of the project, John Kleinheinz, believes.
And I do agree with the former Secretary of Transportation, Buttigieg, about that. Houston and Dallas, probably that Texas Triangle in general, is probably one of the few places in the U.S. where high-speed rail would be a good idea, with the distance between them. He is right about that. That's the ideal location for high-speed rail in the U.S.
Can keep the plan alive.
To put a fine point on it for the committee, do you still believe that the project is alive?
Of course.
Okay.
Now, on Thursday, his investment group, Kleinheinz Capital, told Texas lawmakers they hope to submit a project timeline by the end of the year.
We think it'll roughly take 6 months to complete the kind of finalization of the planning effort. And so what that involves, obviously, is re-looking at, the roads and re-looking at the utilities and re-looking at all the disruption that's going to take place over the 240-mile segment. We think that'll take roughly 6 months. During that time period, we would be working on the financing. We would be working on the application for the Surface Transportation Board final permit. And we would anticipate that we could get that stuff done, let's say, by the end of this year. If all of that stuff is approved by the end of this year, the build schedule, we think, will take between 80 and 86 months.
Gromer, that's a tough road. Remember, Texas Central first pitched the high-speed rail project back in 2009. But look, Gromer, Amtrak pulling this project is a big step back for this idea.
All right, so the federal government is out on this project, apparently. And I want to take a look at one more thing. Okay, so this part in particular, so this justification from the federal government is that this was proposed as a private venture, and if the private sector believes this project is feasible, they should carry the pre-construction work forward, rather than relying on Amtrak and the American taxpayer to bail them out. And Texas Central said they actually agree with Secretary Duffy and that they're going to carry it out without the federal government. Okay. And this was pitched in 2009. And it has ballooned past 30 billion, and the original estimate was 12 billion. And the U.S. Department of Transportation now says it's going to cost $40 billion to complete this. Okay. So this thing's going to be private. So we're going to see if the private sector can pull off high-speed rail between Dallas and Houston. So it is not dead. It's just the federal government is taking the federal dollars away from the project. But let me know what you guys think in the comments about that one. And let's get on with the next story. All right, so this next story is in New York, where tolls are not being paid. But this time it's not from an individual. It's from 3 companies. Let's check this out.